best.
Good evening. Thank you so much for tuning in to This Week on Martha's Vineyard. I'm Emmeline Reed here with Colin. We are going to talk to you about some great topics that have been going on this week, big topics of discussion on Martha's Vineyard, as well as having an interview with a special guest who we are going to talk through a lot of different topics with. Colin, let's kick it off for what we're going to start this week with.
All right.
Yeah, so for topics, I was taking a peek, and of course, as you know, everyone knows Islanders Talk is kind of the big place to get a lot of happening things coming on the island, as well as the MV Times and the Vineyard Gazette. But something that I noticed was a deer crossing, that there was a deer that was brought from Martha's Vineyard all the way over to Falmouth Heights Beach in Falmouth. So I saw that deer was being brought over, and I thought it was just the sweetest little rescue that they brought it back and got it to shore. A lot of people took pictures and videos from Soprano's restaurant in Falmouth, but there was a lot of chatter about it on the island. Did you happen to see that post, Colin?
I did, and it was it actually swam over there. It was a 5-mile swim for the thing. So it wasn't brought over. It actually swam the entire way. The Coast Guard followed it to make sure that it made it.
I thought that was the sweetest thing. They had the little boat escorting it. I was like, oh, they're getting it home. So cute.
Right, and then it got out of the water and just took right off. And it was right there I think it was by the casino or that area there, and just kind of took off and bound up through all those houses. It must have been really confused once it got there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But I don't know what prompted it to take off from the vineyard. I guess maybe there was a lack of nuts over here, something to eat.
Yeah, maybe, but it was really cute either way. I thought that was a really nice, happy post to have. The other thing that I saw as well was a little bit less happy, but still something that is definitely being talked about a lot, was the Jaws Bridge debate. Did you happen to see any of that?
Well, which one? There's been quite a bit of it.
Yeah.
Was it about the jumping off and the dangers behind that?
Yeah, so there was a combination post that was talking about the dangers behind jumping, which it's been illegal to jump off of that bridge for many years, but people have always kind of looked the other way because it's just, it's fun. It's, something to do. It's, kind of a nod to the Jaws film, and it's something that I think everyone, just does, and no one really says anything. Right. But I think there were a lot of concerns this year because of COVID, that there were a bunch of people that were together and kind of clustered together. So I thought that it was interesting that, the bridge has been there a while, the tradition has been there a while, but suddenly the whole concept of, the bridge jumping is being brought up again, which I feel like it comes up every summer, but it seems to be ramping back up again with this additional, because of COVID, should they close it?
Well, I think that, the earlier in the season, there was an incident where a kid jumped off of the little bridge and got hurt. He went down. It's very shallow over there. That's where that first bridge coming from Oak Bluffs towards Eggertown, and he got hurt. He was medevaced off the island. So there was a big concern then about being confused. People being confused over which bridge was the one that people jump off of, and that was several weeks ago. And then there was another, I think it was in Falmouth, actually. Somebody jumped off a bridge over there and landed on a boat. So that prompted some discussion over here. I haven't heard about the COVID, but of course everybody's concerned about that everywhere on the island. So, and there, of course, they are close together. Everybody comes up and they crowd up at the top and they do their jumps off there.
Now, you're a parent, so how do you feel about having, the girls around the Jaws Bridge, if they were going to, jump off or go enjoy it? How would you feel about them being in that environment? Do you think that's something that is kind of being talked about, that maybe people should just let go and let people have their fun? Or do you think it's something that's kind of no, maybe there's a little bit need for more discussion and change on that.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think it is a little too close. You see lots of people jammed up on there, and they're, I mean, it's one summer. It's like I tell my kids, this is something we have to do, and for hopefully a short amount of time, and there'll be plenty of fun to be had once we get through this.
Yeah.
So let's play by the rules, and we're doing it here.
Yeah.
We didn't even have a newspaper this summer, so except for one issue, and the show has been just a live show instead of the multiple shows that we normally do.
Yeah.
But we'll be back, right?
Someday we have to come back. We have to, right? We have to. But you've done a lot of really fun things with the girls this summer, though. Like I know that you had mentioned, I've seen you guys out on the beach and kind of going for walks and stuff. And it seems like you guys have been able to find ways to keep the kids both safe and still kind of entertained. I'm sure it's hard when you have young kids,
It is. But there's a lot of hiking. The one thing, I've lived here for 25 years and I haven't hiked as much as I have since I've been here this summer. And so, I mean, miles and miles and miles of terrific trails. Everybody's out and spaced, and it's beautiful and it's free. There's a lot of beaches that you can go to and you can socially distance. One of the great things we've been doing this summer is going out to Norton Point, where you drive out there and everybody's parks a ways. Although you do see some groups out there that are a little close, but
yeah.
But if you want to socially distance there, you can really easily.
That's awesome.
So now the big concern is going back to school, obviously. And that's where the big discussion is everywhere. I mean, I was just getting my hair cut a couple days ago. The woman who cuts my hair, she just had so much more information than I did on this because my wife follows what's happening, and it was really interesting to see how they were dealing with this in perspective. And that leads up to the guests that we're having tonight, who hope to give us some insight on how they keep yourself and your kids healthy.
And what's the discussion been from, have you heard, or your wife, have you guys heard any feedback from teachers on the island? How are they feeling? Like, what's their comfort level looking like?
I think that the teachers are not thrilled, obviously, to be doing this in person, but they are committed and dedicated people who thankfully are working through it and trying to do it the best they can in the safest way they can. So it's not going to be perfect for anybody. In our case, our kids are in the group that only goes to school once a week, but there's Zoom school the rest of the week.
Yeah.
But
no, I know I have, and I was just curious on what the response looked like on the island. I know I have my sister that teaches out on the South Coast, and then I have another friend that teaches in Connecticut. They both kind of said similar things, that they want to come back and they miss the students, and they're really excited to get them back because they believe that the kids should be in the classroom. But it's like a double-edged sword, because there's also this fear of, yeah, we absolutely want them to be back and we want them to be learning, and we want them with us to get the best education we can give them. But how can you safely do that if you're going to have one teacher exposed to 30 students one day and then another, however many, maybe even 10 or 12 students a day, because that's how many different households you're getting exposed to, like, every other day. So I think there's kind of like a concerning part of it that I think everyone's just trying to navigate the best that they can, because it's almost like, in seeing everything, it's interesting to be able to see both sides. And I think a lot of people are to a point where they can see both sides of things. So I was just curious on what the take was on the island.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we've done a really good job. The influx of people here this summer has been as much or more than we normally get. So,
which is crazy. You would think it'd be less.
Right. You would, but you can't do as much. There's no events, but there's lots of people here. So it's a testament to the way that this island has handled this, is wearing masks, and especially in town, and socially distancing, and it's been very very good here, and in Massachusetts has been doing pretty well as well. So I think if you listen to Dr. Fauci today, talking about the interviewer was asking, is there any good news? Is there anything that you could give for hope? And he was like, yeah. So we have shown that we can control this virus. When we have these areas, these hot areas that pop up, we've been able to, by following these steps, we can lower the spread and we can control it. And that is good news. So all we have to do is follow these steps and we can control this disease until there's a vaccine, which sounds like it's coming pretty soon.
Yeah, I've been seeing that there were, I think, 175 that are in the works that are approved to continue going. So it's interesting. It's kind of like a race to the finish line at this point. So that's something that I'm definitely interested in talking about more. And we will do that coming up after this break. We do have a doctor that we will be speaking with ourselves. So please stick with us. We will be back in just a few minutes after this break.
There is no better place to take in the sweeping views of Edgartown Harbor while enjoying fresh local seafood and cold drinks than the Seafood Shanty on Dock Street. With views from, any seat in the restaurant, everyone gets a water view. Whether resting in the air-conditioned dining room on the first floor or in the open air upstairs on the island's largest deck, this is the place where you realize you have everything you came to Martha's Vineyard for. The Seafood Shanty is where the seafood and the view of the sea meet. Open daily for lunch and dinner and nightlife entertainment.
Located in the Edgartown Triangle, Trader Fred's is a discount haven for locals and tourists. From fishing bait to boogie boards to bikinis, Fred's has what you need. If you didn't find what you wanted, then you must have missed it.
A blistering day on the island can quickly turn into a cool retreat at sea with MV Ocean Sports' dynamic array of water sport activities. From parasailing high above the Vineyard Sound to skimming across its glassy surface on your very own jet ski, MV Ocean Sports has everything fun for everyone. MV Ocean Sports focuses on fun activities the whole family can participate in, including water skiing, wakeboarding, kneeboarding, and tubing. Open daily with sunset specials. Visit mvoceansports.com for more information.
Step back in time. The Edgartown Diner at 65 Main Street offers classic, delicious comfort food at affordable prices. Serving breakfast all day, lunch, and dinner. Discover why everyone loves the Edgartown Diner.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for sticking with us. And now we are going to turn to
I can take my mask off to talk or
our
not.
special guest, Dr. Lisa Nagy. Hi, thank you for joining us.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, wonderful. Good to see you.
Can I take my mask off to do the interview?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Sorry.
No, that's quite all right. So, we're going to be talking tonight about a range of topics. We want to talk about going back to school and see, kind of what your stance is on that and what precautions people can take to be able to keep themselves safe should they need to go back, and what their options are. And then, of course, we're going to talk about a couple more things COVID related. But I know you and I just did an article together a couple of weeks ago for Cape Wide News, which was really awesome on the difference between COVID symptoms and Triple E, which is kind of crazy that you have to focus on both of those at once in one summer.
A lot going on, including Lyme and the co-infections as well. People have many things at the same time.
Yeah, so that can be hard to tell the difference. Did you want to touch on that a little bit and just kind of give a quick recap for everybody here?
Well, what I was going to say is, first of all, I'm an emergency physician, and I've got some background now in environmental medicine, and that means looking at the environmental triggers of disease. And so I'm trying to figure out where the camera is. There it is. Okay. And so we look at things that affect the human body from genes to environment and how they combine to affect your immune system and therefore your ability to fight off infection, whether it's Lyme disease, Bartonella babesia, and equine encephalitis, or coronavirus. So the factors that make some people weaker or stronger during an exposure are a multitude, and some of them are very controversial. So I could go into a little bit of detail about what's in a school that it can affect the immune system of children. Would that be of interest?
Yeah, absolutely. Please do.
Okay, so some of the things that happen in schools could be water intrusion, let's say from a roof leak. And the water gets into the building, the roof isn't changed for years, the smell of mold starts to be a problem, But the chemicals that the molds make are called mycotoxins. And mycotoxins are used in medicine, like cyclosporin, to suppress the immune system. And so if you are suppressed from being in a school or a home that's moldy, you won't fight off the next infection as well because your lymphocytes or white cells are damaged. And also, mold exposure can increase cytokines, change the chemicals the body produces to fight off infection. And in corona, we have cytokine storm, and people get damage to their lungs from these cytokines, these chemicals being overproduced. And I'm going to tie this into endocrine dysfunction, which is largely controlled by the adrenal gland and the production of cortisol, which is a stress hormone. Now, they just published yesterday in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal that hydrocortisone and dexamethasone are the cheap cures to corona illness once you get fairly sick. So the interest in the adrenal gland is paramount now. And if children are in a school and they have damaged adrenals because this mold is damaging their adrenals, they won't make their own cortisol as well than if they get hit by a virus, or their parents who are at home with let's say a musty basement, the parents won't do as well because they may have adrenal insufficiency and need hydrocortisone even earlier in the disease or before they get a disease. So we should all have normal adrenal function walking around to handle stress, allergy, have energy, and not fatigue. Does any of that make sense?
It does. No, it makes perfect sense. And I'm glad that you brought that up because I think it's something that people would never think to check. So what is your recommendation if you're sending a kid back to school and you're like, well, I want them to be safe? What would you say that are some steps that they could take right now to protect themselves before that season starts?
Okay, so what I would say is any human being, children and parents, should be able to decide if they have a fatigue syndrome, if they are not easily able to wake up in the morning, they hit the snooze button 5 times, they love sugar. Yeah, a lot of us have it, but they have a craving of sugar. So I used to put like 10 teaspoons of sugar on my cereal in the morning when I was a kid because I have Addison, so I know this particular aspect of becoming ill very well. And people with Addison's disease, not only do they not have cortisol, but they also don't have aldosterone, and that controls salt and water retention. So they'll crave chips, or they'll like a lot of salt in their food. And by definition, this is somebody who has low adrenal function. So when people, I have a questionnaire which just asks some adrenal questions, and anybody can look on the Google, look on Google, or they could look on my website for a list of adrenal insufficiency symptoms. And if they think they're low, they can get saliva testing at Quest. Their regular doctor could order 4 saliva tubes and look at the graph. The cortisol should be high in the morning and then go down at noon, very low at 4 p.m. to make us want a coffee break or tea and a biscuit, and then almost 0 at midnight when we go to sleep. So if somebody has a flat line and has very low adrenal function in the morning and low cortisol, it's like an emergency. Right. You need to have it treated. You need to see an endocrinologist. You need to be on supplements as well for the adrenal gland, where you can buy them over the counter. But you should not be treated by just the chiropractor or somebody else. You need a physician who is able to prescribe the hormone if it's really low and give the person emergency advice about Addison's disease. And I'm telling you, what's really very interesting is that I'm seeing a lot of Addison's in kids in the high school at Martha's Vineyard and other schools that have mold problems because of the damage to this endocrine organ. And what they crave for some reason when they have adrenal insufficiency and they don't know they need steroids, natural steroids, they like heroin and Percocet. They feel better on oxycodone. They feel normal. So what I'm trying to do is make the field of environmental medicine palatable and interesting for people because it relates to addiction. So that's one area where you have an endocrine organ leading to the use of heroin or alcohol, which is a quick sugar. So they'll be hypoglycemic. They'll want something to replace it, whether it's donuts or some sort of a carbohydrate or beer or other forms of quick sugar. The other aspect of what I'm seeing in schools is dysautonomia, fast heartbeat on standing. And they cross their arms, they cross their legs, and they don't like standing up. They can't think straight when they're standing up, and they feel anxious, and they feel like slouchy. So they don't feel like they can sit up tall and think and be productive humans. They feel like they want to lie down to study sometime even. And their heart rate is easy to check. The parents can check the heart rate, and it should be about 72 standing and lying. Up to 82 standing is acceptable. But if it goes up more than 20 or even 30 beats while they're standing, that's dysautonomia. It's called postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And it can be tested with a tilt table test at either Children's Hospital if they're under 18, or I use Beth Israel Hospital or Mass General. And 90% of the patients I see that seem to have a fast heartbeat on standing, they rule in for postural tachycardia. And the fascinating thing is they crave treatment, and the treatment constricts the veins in the legs and fixes this problem of dysautonomia and sends the blood back up. So it's pooling in the legs because the nerves aren't allowing the veins to constrict. They're not giving the message. So the kids want caffeine, and that'll constrict their veins, or nicotine, or they'll also use amphetamines or cocaine. And the little thing that I've discovered, which I'm squeaking in very quickly, is that this dysautonomia damages the adrenal gland because the adrenal gland can't keep up with the demand under the stress of this fast heartbeat after years. Right. So they develop adrenal insufficiency on the basis of these two things. And not only is mold an issue, but Wi-Fi in the school. So it's electrical. It affects the nervous system. And these issues will combine to make kids have a worse immune system, a more difficult time coping with infection. So my advice is turn off the Wi-Fi. We have legislation now in the Mass Legislature, and hardwire the computers. And these two things of mitigating mold and chemical use in schools, keeping kids more than 6 feet apart. I mean, really, there's nothing to say 6 feet's the rule. And this is going to go on for a couple of years. We're going to have to be very careful for a long time about our communication with each other at close quarters, because the old people like us are probably going to still get corona from the kids. So we need the kids to be as careful as they can, which is really very difficult. This is going to be a very trying time.
And one thing that I've heard a lot of people say, including myself, is, well, we just keep hoping for a good vaccine to come on. What do you think?
I can't
about
hear
that?
you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is this better? Is this better?
Your mic is dead.
Oh,
Well, it's a good thing I like to talk. Oh, there, I hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah, so my next question was going to be with regards to the COVID vaccine. I know a lot of people are very much looking forward to it and hoping that that's going to be the answer. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so I saw a brilliant lecture by Robert F. Kennedy in May on some website to do with London. And the man who conducts the interview sometimes has very right-wing people, but he had Robert F. Kennedy talking about vaccination, which Robert is really good on the subject. And he was in Germany yesterday, or 2 days ago, speaking to 1 million people. So I would listen to what Robert F. Kennedy has to say on vaccines. He's brilliant. And I did read an article that said the vaccination from Moderna that's coming out might have an antigen that 3/4 of the population might have antibodies to or be sensitive to, and it may be risky for creating anaphylaxis in some people, like my patients who are very sensitive. So I would be very hesitant to go forward with using a vaccine. They're supposed to test it on 30,000 people first in phase 3 trial, I think. I'm no expert on trials of vaccines, but I know that there's a lot of financial push to get vaccines distributed early without really knowing if it's efficacious or if there's much risk. And if there's any downside to the vaccine, I've heard that people will not want to use it. So if people get a sore arm or a headache, or there's some people that get very sick, it will be very bad for the population to then all unifiedly, want to use the vaccine. I've also heard that the previous influenza vaccines have made other cold viruses that are corona type worse. So I think we should be very careful about mandating the flu vaccine.
That was my next question. I'm glad you brought that up.
No, I think I would ask Robert F. Kennedy to do a show for you because, I mean, he may be busy. But I think if we look at the data that mandating vaccination with influenza only protects a modest amount of people from getting the flu, most of my patients do not tolerate that vaccine well, and especially if it's multi-dose because it has a preservative in it of some kind to be a vial that can be shared among 30 people. And we want to not force people into the use of the flu vaccine when that's really not the urgent problem. So I think we panic sometimes and we push people to do things because we think it's correct, but we're taking away some basic rights when the flu is not killing everybody as badly as corona, and corona should be the focus, and we should probably not mandate the flu vaccine at all.
Right. Wow, I love that you said that because I know there's been a lot of debate going back and forth. And so I think it's interesting because you'll see a lot of, people that are protesting and a lot of people that have very strong opinions either one way or the other. So it's great to get a professional opinion on it to be able to take that with us. Now, again, with regards to everybody that is going to be going back to school, I know you mentioned a couple of precautions that they could take, prior to coming in. But once they're there, what is your vision of, how things will go? Do you think it's possible for, these kids and the teachers that are going in to be able to safely follow their guidelines? And is there any situation that you see in which things can run, very smoothly?
Well, what I was going to ask is if I could talk about basic supplements that people could take for prevention. So remind me to get back to that.
Yeah.
But I think it's just very difficult to imagine putting a lot of people in one room and one positive person is probably going to infect everybody within a couple of days. So I think it's going to be outdoor, fresh air, high ventilation systems, these charcoal air filters that I use in my office that are, modest in price, a few $100s. They should be in every room, and that would be Aerox, Austin Air, and EnviroCleanse are three that I can think of. And EnviroCleanse has UV, so, ultraviolets. So maybe that will be somewhat helpful. But what I think would be good is to strengthen the immune system of people. And I'm just going to list some of the supplements that people know about, maybe, like zinc and vitamin C. And also there's transfer factor, which is colostrum. And colostrum is in breast milk and helps give immunity, but it's very good for allergy and virus. So when you get sick, definitely take 6 capsules a day of transfer factor. And if you want to take 2 a day for the season, for the next few months, that would be maybe a good idea to increase your immunoglobulin levels. And CDP choline, that's cat, dog, pickle. CDP choline is available online. I bought the one called Carlisle for 500 milligrams, and it's supposed to help with memory, but there is data that it helps with the cytokine production when you get corona. So I've been on that. Yeah, I've been on that for months. I saw very good literature and studies on the production, and why CDP choline fights the production of damaging cytokines that can cause that lung damage. Also, there's a silver spray called a Gentian 23, or any of these silver sprays that are good in the nose that help to kill things, pathogens, whether they're bacterial or viral. And so I would probably consider maybe a spray or 2 every few days to kill in case you have a virus going up into the nasal passage. That would be helpful. And there's a ADR, which is like a adrenal supplement, many adrenal supplements on the market that you could take over the counter to enhance your adrenal function if you don't have the ability to test it, that gives you a little bit more strength in the face of infection. And the last thing would be hydrocortisone. So if you have adrenal dysfunction, you need hydrocortisone anyway, and nobody should take hydrocortisone, it's a prescription, unless they need it. So they have to go to a environmental or an integrative doctor or an endocrinologist, and they're very conservative. Endocrinologists usually don't want to treat people until 10 to 20 years down the line. The other thing is, if you look at the American Academy of Environmental Medicine website, which is aaemonline.org, they list all the environmental physicians in the country, and you could find somebody who knows about saliva testing for adrenal, who knows how to work this up, and can give you the best advice, who's weak in the pack that needs help, whether we're adults or children.
And of course, if they're on Martha's Vineyard, they can come directly to you. Can you tell us a little bit about how people can reach you if they have any questions or if they're interested in coming in and becoming a patient?
Sure, I have free videos, and Office Video 2 is adrenal. So anybody who thinks they crave sugar, crave salt, and they've got fatigue, which is probably, 20% of the population on the Vineyard at least, they should look at the website, which is my name, Lisa Nagy, Nagy.com. And I have Office Video 1, which is clean air, food, and water, and Office Video 3, which is postural tachycardia, diagnosis and treatment. And then number 4 is how do you treat an environmental patient? And obviously, intravenous vitamin C is helpful not only to an environmental patient who's suffering from allergies and chemical sensitivity, but it's been shown in coronavirus in New York. The pulmonologist was doing intravenous vitamin C and steroids just like they were doing in China, and great success. So this stuff is becoming mainstream, and I did buy some dexamethasone, months ago, just in case this became a problem and people were sold out of it. So you want to make sure you don't hoard hydrocortisone for yourself. I can't even get it in the country now. It's already been running low even before they published about it. But there is a run on adrenal dysfunction in the country, and I think people deserve to know their endocrine status. And they can even go to Access Labs, and you can test your own saliva without a doctor.
All right, so you've given us a lot of really great information, so thank you so much for that. And again, people, if you want to go on and take a look, you can go to Dr. Nagy's website and you can check it out, www.lisanágy.com, and that link is going to be up there, so you can go ahead and you can check that out and talk more with her. That's all the time we have for today, but thank you so much for speaking with us. You've given us so much great information, as always. Guys, remember to tune in next week, same time, same place, and keep up with us on Facebook and on Instagram. And of course, make sure you tune in to Performer TV next week for our next live show. Look forward to seeing you then.
It's easy, right?
I got hot and sweaty, though.